Hello and welcome back to Animal Ethics in Action, back after a break last week for some Christmas carols. In one of the comments for a previous video, and please do comment if you feel like it, I really appreciate feedback. In one of the previous comments, a YouTube user called Meow Cat said, please post some squirrels. Now, this is a natural request because I run a wildlife rescue unit here in London called Urban Squirrels, and we do specialize in grey squirrels. So helping me today to explore animal ethics is Timmy Tiptoes. Timmy Tiptoes has neurological issues. They're not very severe, but still he would not survive in the wild, so he is living with us here in an outside aviary. Timmy Tiptoes is going to help me look at the following questions. Are we animals as humans? Are we perhaps different from other animals? Are we higher and better than other animals? Do we therefore have a right to use other animals for our needs? I'm going to start with something very particular and then move into more general points. Generally, whenever people talk about being different from other animals, they have several features in mind, such as language or rationality, or the ability to form political communities, or, well, the one that has been talked about more recently is theory of mind. Theory of mind is the ability to understand what another person is thinking, to understand their mental state and adjust your behavior accordingly. Now, theory of mind is actually manifests itself most clearly in the ability to deceive. It was at some point, as recently as 20 or 30 years ago, thought as the distinctive feature of human beings, something that does distinguish us from other animals. Then, however, this capacity, well, the thing is, ethology, the broad study of animal behavior, does not stand still. And it was found out that higher primates, chimps, for example, do display this feature also. So for a while, it was thought as a feature of higher primates. And well, as late as 2008, I believe, the philosopher Mark Rowlands, in his book, The Philosopher and the Wolf, a great book, by the way, he describes theory of mind as a simian feature, something that belongs to monkeys and apes. But of course, ethology still moves on very fast, and it is now believed that theory of mind is possessed by a variety of animals, including grey squirrels. And it's going to be demonstrated in a minute by Timmy Tiptoes what squirrels do, because theory of mind, remember, it manifests itself by the ability to deceive. And squirrels are known to deceptively bury nuts. If they think that a potential thief is watching, they would make a big pretense of digging a hole, pushing something into it, covering it up, and then go and bury the real nut somewhere else while the thief explores the false cache. And this is, I'm going to play you a short video of Timmy Tiptoes doing precisely that. He comes out wanting to bury a nut. Then he notices that another squirrel called Cledward is watching, and Timmy immediately turns his back on Cledward and pretends basically to bury the nut, but then runs off. You can pause the video at that point if you want to see that there is a white nut very much still in his mouth. Okay, and what happens then is that Timmy, while Cledward is distracted, Timmy goes and buries the nut for real in a large kind of tire sort of thing, so he's not even visible as he does the real burying of the nut. So here it is, Timmy Tiptoes displaying the cognitive feature that was very recently thought to be the distinctive feature of humans. And that is something that happens to all the other features, well, such as language. Of course, now we know that animals have language as well, or the capacity to form communities. Once upon a time, the human was thought of as the political animal. Of course, now we know that other animals do form complex communities of their own. Even laughter It's now been discovered that rats, for example, have at least the neural underpinnings of laughter when they're tickled. So does that mean that we are no different from other animals? Of course, it is intuitively hard to agree to that, even if we, for example, if we look at the way Timmy Tiptoes was practicing his deception and compare it to the way that a human would practice deception. For instance, if a human being rings you on the phone pretending to be a bank employee and tries to get you to disclose your PIN number to them so they can then steal your money, it seems to be a very different thing from what Timmy Tiptoes was doing. And some philosophers, such as the modern philosopher Professor Raymond Tallis, would say that it is a difference, not just in degree, it's a different in kind. Yes, it is theory of mind, but it is radically different in humans and in animals. Well, this is obviously different opinions are possible on that. I'd love to know what you think. I personally think that there is a difference. Clearly, there is a difference, but it is not a difference either in kind or in degree, but rather a difference in circumstances, in values. Squirrels value nuts, humans value money. The squirrel practices what she does in a very simple situation of wanting to bury a nut. A human operates in a very complex situation of internet banking. Of course, you could argue that the very existence of internet banking sets us apart from other animals. So how do we deal with these issues? I think it would be logical to suggest that we are unique and we are different from other animals. However, let's look at dogs. They are also unique and different from other animals. What about dolphins? They're also very unique and very different, and all those cognitive features that they might share with other animals, they practice in a very different, very unique way. And what about pigeons? They're very different from dolphins and dogs and squirrels and humans. So we are all different as species, but that does not mean that we're better than each other. That is, I think, a very important point, that being different does not mean that one is better and one is worse. That is a lesson that we learn from feminist philosophy. Feminist philosophers warn us that we are very often tempted to construct hierarchies without a real need for it. It seems that, whenever we see a difference, we immediately are tempted to construct a hierarchy. One is better, one is worse, one is higher, one is lower. It is not logically necessary. The reason we should not construct these type of hierarchies is not just because feminist philosophers say so, but because these hierarchies turn out to be very arbitrary. They depend entirely on the principle you choose for constructing it. So let's compare the way a squirrel feeds herself, running around gathering nuts, eating twigs and buds, and the way I feed myself, buying food on the internet. Now, if I choose as a criterion the complexity of the action, then of course I come out on top. What I do is far more sophisticated, far more complex, and what the squirrel does is very, very simple. However, we don't have to choose complexity as the criterion for the hierarchy. We can choose how good it is for the environment. And there the situation is suddenly very different. What the squirrel does, what squirrels bury seeds and nuts, they don't retrieve all of them and bury, and when they bury them, they kind of plant more trees. So what the squirrel does is actually very good for the environment. Whereas what I do, well, fine, now I'm vegan, I try to shop local, still, what I do has a negative impact on the environment. So if that is our criterion, then the squirrel is better and higher, and I'm lower. So that is why the hierarchies, well, I suppose if they are constructed at all, they should be treated with a very large pinch of salt, and certainly not form the basis for behavior. If I think, well, I'm more sophisticated than animals, therefore I can use them, we have to think that under another set of criteria, the hierarchy can be completely different. And of course, so even if let's say we concede for the sake of argument that we are different from other animals, and even if we concede that in some situations we are more sophisticated or higher, does that logically mean that we can use other animals? I don't think it does, because this is simply not the way human morality works. Let's consider a family where you've got a baby, for example, that is much weaker cognitively as well as physically than the parents. Does that mean that the parents use the baby? Of course not. It's the other way around. You could say that the baby rather uses the parents. or even society as a whole. We've got people who are elderly or disabled, and we've got people who are younger and physically and even cognitively much stronger. Does that mean that they use the weaker members of society? It's the other way around. The ones who are stronger, younger, would be working and paying taxes to look after the weaker ones. And you could even say that if a person is cognitively more advanced, they would have a better job and pay more taxes. It doesn't mean that they use the weaker ones. So that is why I would argue that even if we concede that we're different from other animals, even if we concede that we're higher than other animals, that would be a reason to look after them rather than use them, because this is where human morality is at. It works on the principle of the moral priority of the weak. And so let us conclude with just watching Timmy Tiptoes eating a nut. This is it for now. Thank you very much for watching. Please do like, subscribe, comment if you wish, and hopefully see you next week.